Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Corky's World channel. I'm Corky as always, and it's late. It's not super late. It's like 11 p.m. I just wrapped up Yakuza Kiwami 2 on the PlayStation 4, and like we did with the previous Yakuza Kiwami, I'm going to do a wrap up video, which is a short summary of the things that happened in the game without revealing too many spoilers, and I'm going to talk about things I liked, things I didn't like, and we're going to end it with a grade. So strap in, and I'm going to tell you a bit about what I can remember happening in this game, and I say that, and it's because, first of all, I apologize. I should have watched my my wrap up video before I actually finished the game and started recording this, because in the last wrap-up video, I realized I showed you guys my completion screen, which I don't have in front of me right now. All I have is the loading screen, and or the opening menu. And from what I can remember, it didn't give me a percentage, but it did show my final stat system, which we will go over. The number of completion tiles, essentially, I completed out of 300, or I think it was a total of 330, and I got about 209, I want to say, of completion tiles. And then it told me how much money I had, which was like 30 million yen or something, which we will discuss that a bit too. And then it said time. So I just watched my wrap-up video from before, and it took me about 30 hours to complete Yakuza Kiwami 2, or 1, and this took me about 39 hours and 30 minutes. So about 9 hours longer than it took me the first time. But in the first game, I wasn't super hell-bent on getting a bunch of like extra side quests and stuff. Whereas this one, they were a little more compelling. So a quick little wrap-up of the plot. I don't remember the last thing we saw, or that you guys saw on the channel. But essentially, what's going on is Kazuma Kiryu comes back to Kanto to help Terada with something he's trying to do. He's trying to join the Omi Alliance and the Tojo clan, so that the Tojo clan is struggling ever since all the stuff that happened in Yakuza Kiwami 1. So Terada reaches out to Kiryu and it's like, hey, you're the only one who can help. Can you just please help me get these two families together so that, we can make some sort of alliance? And before that happens, and I'm pretty sure you see this in the episodes we play, Terada gets gunned down, and his dying wish is for Kazuma to do this. So Kazuma goes off with the help of Date-san. He tracks down the guy who he thinks can be the next lead of the Tojo clan, and stuff happens. Haruka eventually, and this is already something that brings the game a little down for me, is Haruka leaves for about 75% of this game. She says, hey, Uncle Kaz, I know you got things going on. I can go stay at Sunflower until you get things in order. Because when the game started, as you remember, Kazuma and Haruka were living together. So Haruka not being there was a big plot, dampener for me. The urge to help her and save her in Kiwami 1 was such a strong force that her not being in a good chunk of the game kind of made the plot feel a little lackluster. You do meet a lot of new characters. Like I said, I'm not gonna spoil anything. But basically, what it boils down to is you have two enemies in this narrative. One being it's Ryuji, so Ryuji, and then Ryuji Goda, who is the punk patriarch of one of the sub families under the Omi Alliance, and he doesn't want the Tojo clan to join with them. He thinks they're weak. He just wants to do things his way. He wants to be on top. And he also compares himself to Kazuma Kiryu, and that's what you're seeing right here. You're seeing Ryu's tattoo, which is the golden dragon, and then in contrast to Kazuma's, which is just the dragon that was inked by the famous tattoo artist who I forget. That's a whole storyline or side quest in itself. And then the other villain you have is an unknown force that I don't want to spoil it, but it's an unknown force that's kind of moving things behind the curtain and in the shadows that doesn't really reveal themselves till like the third act. And there's 4 acts, so you have the beginning, second act, third act, and then the finale. And where my criticisms already begin, and the reason that 2 is not going to get the same high score as 1 is that the plot, because we're going to slowly shift from plot into my review, is the plot of 2 was just not strong enough. For me, it was still a fantastic plot, and near the end there, I dipped a little bit. Whereas in Kiwami 1, it was such a fresh new experience, and I was so excited, and there was never a moment where I was like, I'm going to go play something else. 2 didn't have that for me. It didn't have that drive. The plot was just not as there for me. And that could have been because Haruka was gone a good chunk of the time. It could have been because I just, the feud that was going on wasn't driving me as much as the first one. 2 essentially brothers who were brought up in the same way. One took the bullet for the other, only to come back and find that his brothers become a total douchebag. There was something so driving and personal for me about that going to this plot, which is just all new faces and all new, and Haruka's not there. Everyone Kazuma cared about essentially in the first game basically gone. It was hard. It was just hard to take all that in. Granted, the last chapter of the game, the final chapter, wrapped everything up so nicely and actually had me on the edge of my seat that it actually pulled the game score up a little bit further than I was initially going to give it. So as far as mechanics go, one thing that Kiwami 2 did that 1 didn't, that I fucking love, was that when you break into a street fight, it's not... In the first game, when you ran into someone or broke into a street fight, it was like, okay, street fight starting, black screen, load, open, all right, here we go, let's do the fight. Fight's over, black screen, and back to walking. This was seamless. It was you bumped into someone, and it was go, and then when it was done, and you went straight back to walking. There was no in-between, there was no buffer. It was so clean and polished and smooth. I was like I was saying, I re-listened to my last review, or the last wrap up for Kiwami 1, and I hadn't realized how many mini games that were in the first game didn't make it back to the second. So there are a handful of returning ones, like baseball. The batting cages is still here, even though they changed up the way it works a bit. Much better, in my opinion. Sorry about that. Darts is still here. You can still play blackjack, poker, and stuff in the underground. You can still do the Coliseum, but I actually just didn't do it this time. There is a side quest that brings you back to there, but I just didn't do it. I spent a lot of time in the Coliseum in the first game, but very little. A main quest takes you through there. But other than that, I didn't really pay it any mind. Billiards is gone. Bowling is gone, which those were probably the 2 mini games I played the least in the first one. The rock, paper, scissors bug catcher game is gone. So arcades now have claw machines, which work much, much better than the first game. Weird urinal mini games called toilets or something. I only played once because it was super weird. But it was you control the game with your urine stream, and I just couldn't get behind it. And then also 2 actual Sega arcade editions. You could play the mech fighting game, which is Virtual On, or you could play Virtual Fighter, which were pretty cool additions. Um, Considering they took away the rock paper scissors bug game, which, like I said, I didn't really even play in the first one. Sorry for the yawning. Super, super unprofessional of me. If you're wondering why I'm staying up late and not just going to sleep, my new work schedule. I don't start the day till basically like 3 p.m. So I'm trying to stay up later so I can sleep later, so I'm not exhausted by the end of that shift. What else? What else about Yakuza Kiwami 2? Graphics are great. Music's great. Voice acting's fantastic, even though I'm just kind of like, you just have to kind of judge, or for me at least, because I don't understand Japanese as I hear it. You just have to, take in the emotions that the actors and actresses are putting in through their voice. So, one of the cool things about this game is you have the original Kanto, which is where which is where Kiwami 1 takes place, and then they also add an additional map, which is the Osaka Prefecture that you go to in like the third or fourth act, or not even act, like third or fourth chapter, and then you do stuff there for a little bit, and at some point you can unlock the ability to go back and forth, which is super cool. Another mini game they added is the Majima Construction mini game, which is its own side story in itself. But essentially, Majima is transforming Purgatory into like high scale uprise condos and apartments and stuff, and a bunch of other people are trying to shut it down. So you play a sort of tower defense-esque game, controlling Majima and other people you collect in the game as fighters to defend like packages and equipment and stuff. It's not bad. I played it all the way through because I just wanted to see the end story of it, but and I love Majima so much. And also, Majima-san is really only in the game for a brief minute in the main story, and then this construction mini game. You don't run into him on the streets. You don't random fights. You don't unlock stuff. Which also brings me to mention that they changed the combat system altogether. It's not 4 fighting styles anymore. It's just you are the dragon, and you can do the heat actions, and that's about it. Like there's no fighter, which was the Bruce Lee. There's no like brawler. There's no dragon. There's no I know I just said you're a dragon, but there's no whatever the other one was. It's not 4 styles. It's just the one style, and I actually think it's kind of better because in the first one I found myself always being the blue fighter or whatever that was, and like I'd never balanced it out. The level up tree is also way more streamlined. It's a lot more improved. I'm already running way longer than I was expecting to, which is what I did on the first wrap up too. Another mini game side story is you can't go into cabaret clubs in this one. Instead, you run across a club that's down on its luck, and you end up turning it around with like a time management cabaret mini game. And that's the best way to bank money in this game, because near the end of that, you can end up raking in like 4 or 5 million yen a run through. But the thing about that is you really only need about 5 million yen at most in this whole game, because all you really need money for is to buy food to fill your stomach, which is another thing they added. You can get experience for the different point levels by eating food from all the different restaurants, and that's super cool. But like, you don't really need money essentially in this game. Like, there are a few missions where it's like, hey, can you lend me like 300,000 yen? I'm doing a thing. But other than that, like, once you get to like, probably, like I said, 5 million, 10 million yen, you're probably set for the whole game for anything you could possibly need. So, I'm just babbling now. The game was good. I'm excited to see 3, or I'm hoping that we get 3 and 4 over here as well. If not, it's fine. 4 and 5 are backwards compatible, and are also on whatever PlayStation calls their Game Pass, essentially. I don't remember what it's called, but God, I'm sure my voice sounds terrible because it's late and I'm tired, and I can already tell it sounds scratchy. So I apologize, and thank you for anyone who's still listening at this point. But next game we're probably gonna do is gonna be 0, and if we don't get 3, like if it doesn't look like 3 is ever gonna work out, then we'll probably just backwards do 4 and 5. I'll just read a summary of 3, and then we'll move on to 6, which I haven't seen any spoilers, but I'm pretty sure Kazuma dies in 6. It's called The Song of Life. It seems right. And with news about Yakuza Online floating around where you're not, which obviously you couldn't be Kiryu in Yakuza Online if we're all hopping on. But everyone, from what I've heard, everyone's pretty excited about that too. So, okay, guys, Yakuza Kiwami 2, my final verdict is 8 out of 10 controllers. And actually, let's bump that down to 7.5. 7.5 out of 10 controllers. This is still a fucking fantastic game, and I cannot stress that enough. If you're a fan of Kiwami 1, if you're a fan of 6, 0, if you just are waiting for an excuse to get around to this game, please play Kiwami 1 first. But once you get through that, guys, pick this up. Maybe wait for a sale. I don't think you need to go the $60 right away, but this is still a great game. It's just for me a lackluster plot and just minor things and nitpicks here and there keep it from being what the first one was. And honestly, the first one got a 9 because it birthed this whole experience for me. It got me in this whole thing, you know. Something that introduces you to something is always going to shine brighter than things down the road, or at least that's how I take it. So, guys, 7.5 out of 10. Please check this out. It's such a great game. I personally can't justify giving it any higher than that. So, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for liking, commenting, subscribing if you did. This was a super late, quick throw together session, and I doubt I'm gonna leave the camera on for anything else with my voice this scratchy. But guys, always remember to be good to yourself, be good to each other, and I will see you in the next episode. Later days.